My name is Liam, and I buy dead people's history. I run a small antique shop in an isolated, foggy town in Oregon. Last month, I went to an estate sale at an old, abandoned farmhouse. The family had vanished back in 1994. In the basement, buried under layers of dust, I found a heavy, vintage, reel-to-reel tape recorder. A beautiful, wooden Panasonic model. Inside it was a single, unlabeled magnetic tape. The auctioneer sold it to me for $20. He just wanted it out of his sight. That night, inside my empty shop, the rain was pouring against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I cleaned the machine, plugged it in, and pressed the heavy, mechanical play button. Clunk. The plastic reels began to spin slowly. For the first 30 seconds, there was nothing but the low, warm hiss of empty tape. Hiss. Then a sound emerged. It was a child's voice, a little girl giggling. But the laughter was strangely slowed down, distorted. "Daddy," she whispered. "The man in the wall is playing the skin game again." My skin crawled. I reached out to stop the tape, but then a second voice broke through. It was a man, sobbing, breathing heavily. "I locked the basement," the man wept into the microphone. "But he didn't come through the door. He grew out of the shadows under the floorboards." Suddenly a violent, wet, tearing sound echoed from the speakers, like wet cloth being ripped apart. The man let out a blood-curdling shriek that was cut off instantly by a loud mechanical click. The tape went silent, just the static hiss remaining. Hiss. I sat there frozen, staring at the spinning reels. That was when I noticed the smell. The smell of old, stagnant blood and wet hair filling my entire shop. I couldn't sleep that night. The sound of that tearing flesh kept echoing in my skull. The next day, I decided to do something stupid. I wanted to see if anyone on the internet knew about the 1994 farmhouse incident. I set up my phone on a tripod and started a live broadcast on Reddit for my followers. I wanted to play the tape live to see if anyone recognized the voices. "Hey guys," I said to the camera. "Listen to this tape I found." I pressed play. The audio began. The little girl's whisper, the man's sobbing, the wet, tearing sound. The comment section on my live stream went absolutely insane. Fake. Creepy. Turn it off. But then, one user named Shadow_94 commented something that made my heart stop. "Look behind you, on the monitor." Behind my desk, I had a large, black security monitor displaying the live feed of my shop's showroom. I slowly turned my head to look at it. The showroom was dark, lit only by the street lamps outside. On the screen, I saw myself sitting at my desk, broadcasting. But then, the tape on the reel-to-reel recorder hit that violent click sound. On the security monitor, the reflection of my shop window changed. The glass didn't show the rainy street anymore. It showed a massive, impossibly tall creature pressed flat against the glass from the outside. It had no face, just a giant, wet, vertical slit down the middle of its head. I whipped my head around to look at the real window. It was empty. Just rain. I looked back at the monitor. The creature on the screen was now inside the room. It was standing directly behind my chair. It raised a long, skeletal arm and placed a single, pale finger onto my shoulder. In real life, in that exact second, I felt a bone-chilling, freezing pressure drop onto my left shoulder. I screamed, throwing myself forward off the chair. My phone fell, breaking the live stream. I didn't look back. I sprinted out of the shop into the freezing rain, leaving the door wide open. I drove to a hotel 3 towns away, shaking, crying, locking myself in the bathroom. I stayed there for 3 days until the police finally agreed to check the shop. When they went in, they found the shop completely untouched. No monster, No signs of a break-in. Except for one thing, the vintage tape recorder was gone. They thought I had a psychological breakdown. I never went back to that shop. I closed the business, sold the inventory online, and moved to a small, modern apartment in Seattle. No antiques, no old things. Everything new. But yesterday was my birthday. A heavy cardboard box arrived at my door with no return address. I thought it was a gift from my sister. I opened it. Inside, resting on a bed of old newspaper, was a single, black, modern cassette tape. Written on it in permanent marker was my name, Liam. My hands shook so badly I could barely breathe. I didn't want to play it. I threw it in the trash chute of my building. I went to bed, praying, trying to forget. But at exactly 3:14 a.m., I woke up. The apartment was dead silent, except for a faint, rhythmic sound coming from inside my bedroom closet. Whir, whir, whir. It was the sound of magnetic tape spinning. I froze in my bed, paralyzed with absolute terror. The closet door slowly clicked open an inch, and from the darkness inside, a voice drifted out. It wasn't the little girl. It wasn't the man. It was my own voice. It was a recording of me from 3 days ago, screaming in my hotel bathroom. But the recording was slowed down, distorted, wet. And beneath my screaming voice, I could hear the wet, rhythmic clicking of fingers tapping against the inside of the closet door, moving closer to my bed. This happened when my son was about 3 years old. It was early in the morning, and he had come to my bed to chit-chat as little kids usually do. I was still lying down and now trying to get myself out of bed. All of a sudden, I realized my son was no longer talking to me. He was now facing to my left, towards the corner of the room where my nightstand is. He got very serious and asked me, "Who is that lady?" That instantly got my attention. I asked, "What lady? What does she look like?" He didn't answer, so I asked a more specific question. "What color is her hair?" He said, "White." Then I asked, "What is she saying?" And my son responded, "Oh, she's not saying anything. She's just going like this." Inserts his fist into his mouth and stares blankly at me. Okay, then. That freaked me out. I told the lady she couldn't stay. This is our house and she must leave. I grabbed my child and walked out of the room. I never heard about her again. A couple other of weird, creepy things happened at the house, but it has been a long time. My life was turned upside down when I became homeless. It hasn't been easy. I lost my job, my home, and I spent all my savings trying to survive while searching for my next job, and even that now seems impossible. So far, I've been living on the streets for 27 days that feel more like 100. Everything in my life was already going wrong, but yesterday, when the old man showed up, things got even worse. It was morning, after another night sleeping on the street. I was getting ready for another day of trying to find a job or any kind of work that would pay. I was packing up my things when the old man appeared. "Excuse me for bothering you, but I'd like to have a quick word with you." That was how the old man approached me. I stopped what I was doing and looked at him, curious about what he wanted to say. He had a calm appearance, like a cute grandfather. "Yes, go ahead," I said, curious about what he was going to say. I just prayed he wasn't about to offer me money in exchange for some sexual favor. I'm desperate, but not that desperate. Still, I wouldn't have been surprised at all if it had been something like that, because I'd heard several terrifying stories from other homeless people involving bizarre sexual acts. "I'll give you $100 if you do a small and simple task for me," the old man said cautiously. Great. Here come the bizarre sexual favors. That was what I thought at the time. I felt genuinely disappointed. $100 would definitely help, but I still hadn't lost my dignity. I'd rather live on the streets for the rest of my life than submit myself to that kind of thing. Ah, no thanks. I don't do sexual favors, I immediately said, trying to cut the conversation short. I was already feeling disgusted just looking at him. Oh, no, no. It's nothing like that, the old man said with a laugh. My curiosity returned. If it wasn't anything sexual, then I was interested in those $100. Oh, okay. So what do you need me to do? I need you to take this to my wife for her to eat. In his right hand, he was holding a small white box. It's a donut for her. I became slightly suspicious, and I think he must have seen it on my face. Oh, yes. You must be wondering why I can't do something so simple myself. You have to understand, I'm old now. Climbing stairs is difficult for me, and I can't walk more than 100 meters without losing my breath, the old man explained, and it actually made sense, although I still found the whole thing strange. Okay, and you're giving me $100 just for that? I said, still suspicious that there was something else he wasn't telling me. Yes. You just have to take this donut to my wife. Our house is very close by, but unfortunately it's difficult for me. It would be quicker if you did it. It would only take you 5 minutes. Besides, I'm not going home just yet. I still have some things to sort out regarding my pension. It was a simple task. Too simple. But I didn't ask any more questions. Honestly, I didn't care about anything else except those $100 practically being handed to me. At the same time, I'd also be helping an old man. Okay, I'll do it. But I need the money up front, I said, not wanting to get scammed. Oh yes, of course, the old man said as he took out his wallet. He pulled out $100 bill and handed it to me. I grabbed the bill and immediately put it away. It felt so good to receive that money. I was already thinking about what I was going to buy. Food, mainly. I was going to make that money last as many days as possible. The old man explained where he lived, which was actually close to where we were. During the walk to his house, I couldn't stop thinking about how strange the whole situation was. The old man had given me $100, an address, and a donut. Nothing was stopping me from eating the donut and running off with the money, or even going to his house and robbing it. His luck was that I'm not like that. I never have been. So I was going to do things properly and honestly, as I always had. Little did I know that the best thing I could have done would have been to run away with the $100 and never look back. They lived in a 4-story building. They lived on the 3rd floor, apartment on the left. When I arrived, the elevator was out of order. I climbed the stairs without any problem. I actually appreciated the exercise. A minute later, I was standing in front of the door to the apartment on the 3rd floor to the left. I knocked on the door. Nothing. I knocked again. Once more, nothing. Maybe the old lady couldn't hear very well because of her age, I thought. I grabbed the doorknob, hoping it might be unlocked, and it was. As soon as I stepped inside, I immediately started announcing who I was and why I was there. I didn't even know the old woman's name, or the old man's. He hadn't even told me what either of them was called. I couldn't believe I'd agreed to do this without even knowing their names. The apartment seemed empty, which was strange. As a last resort, I had already decided I'd just leave the donut there and go. But first, I checked every room to see if the old woman was somewhere inside. It was a small apartment. The kitchen and living room, which had a table, sofas, and a television, were completely empty. The bathroom door was open, and it was empty too. The door to what I assumed was the bedroom was slightly ajar. If she was anywhere, she would be in there, I thought at the time. I knocked on the door. Once again, nothing. I pushed the door with the palm of my hand and it opened. There was an old woman on the floor in a fetal position. I was shocked. I hadn't expected to see her like that. Are you okay? I asked, worried. I approached the old woman who said nothing. Her face was hidden between her arms. I lightly touched her shoulder to see if she was all right when she suddenly opened her eyes. She let out an animalistic scream. I jumped in fright and stumbled a few steps back in shock. The old woman quickly got to her feet and stared directly into my eyes. She had an aggressive expression, like a wild animal feeling threatened. And her eyes, narrow and blood red. I could feel the rage in them. Wait, calm down. Your husband sent me here to give you this donut, I said, completely terrified. I had never seen a person like this before, much less an old woman. She looked like an animal, thirsty for blood. I slowly backed away, full of fear, holding my arms out with my hands open to show I didn't intend to hurt her. At that moment, I started questioning what kind of bizarre situation I had gotten myself into. The old woman growled as she stared at me like she was going to tear me apart with her teeth in 5 minutes. Those eyes, they pierced right through me with rage. I had no idea what was happening, but I was trapped in that standoff. Then the old woman suddenly started running toward me and leapt on top of me. We both crashed to the floor. I landed on my back with her on top of me. I grabbed her arms to stop her from clawing me with her long, sharp nails. She opened her mouth, trying to bite my face with her pointed teeth. Saliva dripped from her mouth onto my face. Disgusting. Without thinking, just reacting in the moment, I managed to get my foot against her stomach and shove her off me. I pushed so hard that she slammed her back against the wall. I got to my feet and ran for the door. Before I could even reach it, she managed to grab the back of my shirt and yank me toward her. I was panicking. I just wanted to get out of there, but I didn't know how. The damn old woman wouldn't stop attacking me and trying to eat me. Yes, literally eat me. She was starving for flesh. Desperate, I grabbed the first thing I could find. While she was dragging me across the floor, my hand hit something solid. Without hesitating, I grabbed it. Without even knowing what it was, I smashed it against the old woman's head with all the strength I had. Only then did I realize it was a glass perfume bottle that had fallen during our struggle. I managed to split open her forehead. Blood started running down from the wound. Completely consumed by the moment, I struck the old woman in the head with the hard glass perfume bottle over and over again. I hit her, and hit her again. Her skull was caved in. Blood was flowing everywhere. She died. I killed her. I felt a wave of nausea twist my stomach. I didn't feel well. I dropped the perfume bottle and staggered toward the door. I left the bedroom and headed straight for the apartment's front door when I saw the shadow of 2 feet through the gap beneath it. Someone was about to come inside. In an instant, I hid behind the sofas. That person carefully opened the door. "Darling, are you done already?" said a very familiar voice, sounding somewhat nervous. It was the old man's voice. That bastard old man was obviously involved in this. At that point, I had almost forgotten about him. He was the one who had trapped me in this nightmare of a situation. "Darling," he called out as he slowly walked through the living room toward the bedroom. "Have you eaten him already?" That was when something inside me snapped, a fury I didn't even know I had awakened inside me. The old man had lured me with money to do a simple task, when in reality, it had all been to feed the old woman. He had literally picked a homeless person because they're easy to lure into things like this, and after being used as food, no one would notice they were gone. What was supposed to happen was for me to show up here all happy, because I had $100 in my pocket and was delivering a donut to an old lady, only to end up becoming her meal when I found her. The old man stepped into the bedroom. When he saw the old woman with her head crushed in, he started crying and mumbling something to himself. I quietly slipped out from behind the sofas and grabbed a frying pan that was sitting in the sink from the old man's breakfast. I walked into the bedroom. The old man was bent over the old woman's corpse, or that thing, whatever it really was. I approached him and struck him hard across the head with the frying pan, knocking him unconscious. When the old man woke up, I was sitting in front of him. He was sitting on a chair with his hands and feet tied with bed sheets I had taken from the bed. He was tied up so tightly with so many knots that escaping was impossible. "How many times have you done this?" I asked him directly. "What?" he said, still dazed and confused. "How many times have you done this? Manipulating homeless people to feed that thing," I said, losing my patience. "That thing is my wife," he said seriously. "Answer me," I shouted, holding a kitchen knife I'd found in their kitchen while he was unconscious. Okay, calm down," he said fearfully when he saw me handling the knife in my hand. "A few times." So this wasn't the first time he had done this. It disgusted me just to look at him. What the hell was wrong with the old woman? I asked. At that moment, I wanted to know what had made her become so animalistic. Ever since we came back from vacation, she's been acting like a rabid animal. I don't know. Something happened. Every day since then, she's become more and more hungry for flesh. Human flesh, he said without looking me in the eye. I loved her too much not to find a way to feed her. I had heard enough. I didn't want to know anything else. I stuffed a piece of bedsheet into his mouth so he couldn't make any noise. He tried to speak and scream, but he couldn't. I took the key to the bedroom door and left. I closed the door behind me and locked their bedroom door, leaving him trapped inside with the old woman's corpse. I shut the apartment door and walked away. When I got outside onto the street, I threw the bedroom key into a street gutter. There were people who didn't deserve to live. I decided to bring some justice for the people that they killed. His wife's bizarre condition was strange, and I didn't want to think about it anymore. I had almost died. I had almost been eaten alive. Now it was time for the old man to be punished for what he had done.